Let me be honest with you. This isn't going to be some pretty, polished speech. No violin music, no cinematic filter, just me. And maybe you. Sitting with the weight of trying, you know. There's a funny thing that happens when you decide to commit to something. Really commit. Not just the Instagram post, motivational quote, fire in your eyes kind of commitment. I'm talking about the kind that has you waking up early when no one's watching. The kind that makes your heart race not out of excitement, but out of fear that maybe you're not enough. That kind of commitment. It tests you, and not in the way they told you it would. They said it would be hard, but they didn't say it would feel lonely. They didn't say it would feel like no one in the world understands why you're pushing so hard for something no one else can see but you. They didn't say some nights would end not with relief, but with tears. Let me tell you about one of those nights, because that's the kind of story no one tells. It was 2:47 a.m. I remember the time exactly because I'd been staring at the corner of the ceiling for at least an hour, listening to the tick of a silent room that felt louder than anything. My laptop was still open. The blue glow of a blank Word document lit up the tired lines under my eyes. I was supposed to be writing an essay. I'd picked a topic I loved. I had books open all around me, but every time I tried to write a sentence, my fingers froze. My brain screamed, not because I didn't understand the material, but because something in me was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. I closed my eyes, and the tears came, quiet at first, like a single drop falling into an ocean of silence. Then wave after wave. You know what's strange? I wasn't even sad, not in the usual sense. I was just exhausted. Exhausted from holding myself together for so long. Exhausted from pretending I was okay when I wasn't. Exhausted from chasing a version of myself I wasn't sure I'd ever catch. And in that moment, I thought, what if I just stopped? What if I let go? Closed the laptop, quit the course, let the dreams go quiet? Would anyone even notice? Would anyone care? But then, something happened. Something small, something easy to miss. A memory of a younger version of me, sitting on the floor of my childhood bedroom, wide-eyed, hopeful, excited. She believed in something. She believed that one day I'd do something meaningful. She didn't care how many grades I got, how many certificates I held. She just wanted me to keep going, to not give up on her. So I opened my eyes, wiped my face, took a deep breath, and I didn't write the perfect essay that night. I didn't conquer anything heroic, but I stayed. I stayed in that chair, with my messy thoughts, with my blurry vision, with the ache in my chest, and I wrote one sentence, just one. But that one sentence became two. And the next night, I wrote 5 more. And the night after that, I didn't cry. You see, everyone talks about the reward of hard work, the success, the moment of glory. But the real reward, it's becoming someone who doesn't quit on themselves, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when the only applause is the beating of your own heart, telling you, you're still here, and that matters. That was the night. Everything cracked. But it was also the night something new began. Not perfection, not motivation, but something better. Grit. The kind of grit that says, I'll show up again tomorrow, even if my hands shake, even if my heart breaks, even if no one sees. Because maybe, just maybe, the most beautiful part of the journey is the part no one sees. Let me be honest with you again. There's something they don't tell you when you start walking down the path of chasing something bigger than yourself. They don't tell you about the silence. The long stretches of silence. Not the kind you get when the world is sleeping. Not the peaceful kind. I'm talking about the silence that comes when you've poured your heart into something, when you've tried and tried again, and nothing seems to answer back. No results, no recognition, no applause, just stillness. There was this week, I don't remember which month anymore, but I remember how it felt, where every single day I showed up. I sat at my desk, I turned off my phone, I opened my notes, I did the work, quietly, alone, and you'd think doing the right thing would make you feel proud, but no. That week, I felt invisible, like I was pouring everything I had into a well that had no bottom, like I was screaming into a canyon that never echoed back. I remember going out for a walk one night, trying to clear my head. It was cold. The air stung a little when I breathed in too deep. I passed people, couples holding hands, kids laughing, someone walking their dog, and I realized something. They had no idea what I was carrying, and I didn't know what they were carrying either. We pass people every day who look fine, but inside there, breaking inside, they're whispering the same thing I was whispering that night. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, and no one hears it, because it's not a scream, it's not a meltdown. It's just a quiet, tired voice inside that says, please, let this mean something. I walked all the way to the end of my street and back. The whole time, I didn't say a word, didn't listen to music, didn't check my phone, just let the silence speak. And somewhere in that stillness, I felt something small, something tiny but powerful, a shift, a decision, that even if no one else hears the whisper, I will. Even if no one else claps, I'll keep clapping for myself. Even if the results are slow, I'll keep showing up. Because maybe the real work, the real life-changing work, isn't what you do when everything's going well. Maybe it's what you do when everything's quiet. That week taught me something I'll never forget. You don't need noise to move forward. You don't need recognition to keep growing. You don't need applause to be worthy of trying. And sometimes the silence is where you hear the most important voice of all, your own. The one that says, this matters, you matter. Keep going, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when you're whispering, because whispers, when spoken with enough honesty, can become the loudest kind of courage. Let me be honest with you again. There was a day I almost quit, not in the dramatic way people imagine. There wasn't a big breakdown, no angry storm, no one slamming doors or tearing up notebooks. It was much quieter than that, almost peaceful. Actually, I woke up that morning and everything just felt empty. You know that feeling, when you open your eyes and the world looks the same, but something in you doesn't rise with the sun. I didn't feel sad, I didn't feel scared, I didn't feel much of anything at all. I brushed my teeth, I made some coffee, I opened the window. The city was buzzing outside, cars honking, kids heading to school, someone arguing on the phone, and me, I just stood there, holding the mug in my hands, thinking, what if I stopped trying, stopped showing up, stopped pushing myself to care so deeply? Would it really matter? I looked at the stack of books on my desk, the highlighted pages, the notes in the margins, the sticky tabs like flags in a battlefield, and I felt tired, not tired like I needed sleep, but tired like something inside me had been holding up a roof that was starting to cave. It wasn't just about studying, it was about what it meant, the pressure, the expectations, not just from others, but from myself. The weight of being the hard worker, the resilient one, the person who always bounces back. Sometimes, that image becomes a cage. You spend so long trying to be strong that you forget how to be human. So that morning, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I left my books, left my notes, left the guilt sitting right there on the table, and I went outside. Not to clear my head, not to be productive, not to recenter. I just walked. I didn't even know where I was going. No destination, no plan, just me and the road under my feet. And as I walked, I started to notice the little things, the way sunlight hit the leaves just right, the way a stranger smiled at a baby in a stroller, the way the world kept turning, even though I had paused, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel behind. I didn't feel broken, I just felt present. I sat down on a bench, closed my eyes, breathed, and in that moment, I realized something that changed everything. Rest is not weakness. Pausing is not quitting. Stepping back doesn't erase how far you've come. That day didn't end with a burst of motivation. I didn't run home and crush my goals. I didn't suddenly figure it all out, but I went home lighter. I went home with permission. The permission I had denied myself for so long. Permission to be tired. Permission to be lost. Permission to not have it together every second of every day. And slowly, gently, I came back to the desk, to the books, to the path. But this time, I came back with a different voice inside me. Not the voice that yelled, you have to be perfect, but the one that whispered, you're allowed to be human. And that voice, that quiet, kind, patient voice, that's the one that keeps me going now. Because real commitment doesn't look like never falling. It looks like falling and choosing to stand again, even if you take your time, even if you need to breathe, even if you almost walk away. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you'll ever do is decide to stay. Let me be honest with you. There was a lie I believed for way too long, a lie that almost broke me, a lie that wore a smile, sounded reasonable, and dressed itself up like motivation, which made it all the more dangerous. The lie was this: If you're struggling, it means you're failing. I didn't just believe it, I lived it. Every time I sat with my books and couldn't focus, I whispered it to myself. Every time a test came back with a lower grade than I hoped, it echoed in my chest. Every time someone else seemed to be breezing through, while I was still trying to catch up, the lie wrapped around me like a second skin. And the worst part, I didn't even question it, because the world around me seemed to confirm it. All the highlight reels, all the perfect posts, all the conversations where people bragged about their achievements, but never mentioned their breakdowns. I thought, maybe they don't struggle like I do. Maybe they're just built for this, and I'm not. Maybe I'm the weak one. So I wore a mask, smiled at the right moments, nodded when someone said, "You're so disciplined," when inside, I was drowning. You ever felt like that? Like you're applauded for being strong, but inside you're screaming, "I'm not okay." Like you've built a reputation for being dependable, so now you don't feel allowed to fall apart. I remember one night, I was sitting in a cafe, trying to finish an assignment. The place was busy, laptops open, coffee mugs everywhere. There was this girl across from me, typing furiously. Her posture was perfect. Her screen was filled with what looked like brilliant thoughts. And me, I was stuck on the same paragraph for over an hour. I couldn't think, couldn't write. I just stared at the cursor, blinking like a heartbeat I couldn't match. And that lie, it came back again. If you're struggling, you're failing. So I closed my laptop, packed up my things, went home, and that night, I cried. Not the quiet, graceful kind, the ugly, loud, shaking shoulders kind of cry that comes when you've held it all in for too long. I cried because I thought I had failed, because I wasn't perfect, because I needed help, and I didn't know how to ask. But something changed that night, not in an instant, not with a quote, but with a voice, a small voice, one I hadn't heard in a long time. It asked me, what if the struggle isn't failure? What if the struggle is the point? It hit me like a wave. All this time, I had been measuring my worth by how smooth the road was, how fast I ran, how flawless I looked doing it. But what if the road was meant to be hard? What if the resistance wasn't punishment, but preparation? What if the real victory wasn't how perfectly I performed, but how deeply I persisted? So I started asking around, friends, classmates, strangers online, and you know what I learned? Everyone struggles. The ones who look like they've got it. All together they've cried in bathrooms too. They've doubted themselves too. They've thought about quitting more times than they can count. They were just quiet about it. Like me, like maybe you. And that's when I realized, we've all been sold the same lie. The truth is this: if you're struggling, it means you're growing. It means you care. It means you're in the arena getting bruised, but still swinging. There's nothing weak about that. In fact, it might be the strongest thing about you. So I made a new rule for myself. I won't let struggle define my failure. I'll let it define my courage. And every time I feel like I'm slipping, every time I look at someone else and think they've got it figured out, I remind myself, I'm not behind. I'm not broken. I'm just building, brick by brick, a strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. If you're in the middle of it right now, if your mind is foggy, your heart is heavy, and your soul is whispering, I don't know if I can do this, I want to tell you something. You are not failing. You are learning to fight. You are learning to stay. You are learning to live honestly, in the mess, in the mystery, in the making of who you're becoming. That lie, the one that says struggle equals failure, it only has power if you believe it. But the moment you let it go, the moment you say, this is hard, but it's not the end of me, that's when the truth starts to rise. And the truth is this: your struggle is sacred, your fight is beautiful, and your story is far from over. Let me be honest with you again. Sometimes, it's not about being inspired. It's not about feeling ready. It's not about motivation at all. Sometimes, it's about making a choice, not once, but 100 times a day, to keep fighting for something that no one else can see but you. This part of the journey isn't glamorous. It won't make the cover of any magazine. It won't go viral. It probably won't even be understood by the people closest to you. But it's real, and it's raw, and it matters. There comes a moment in every journey, not just once, but again and again, when you're tired of the climb, not just physically, but emotionally. You're tired of trying so hard and still feeling behind. You're tired of showing up and seeing no proof that it's working. I've had those moments, more than I can count. Days where I sat with open notebooks and a closed heart, Days where I tried to read but couldn't even remember the sentence I just finished. Days where I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "What's the point?" And on those days, not the good ones, not the productive ones, but the broken ones, I found the truth I had been missing. The fight itself is where the truth lives, not in the outcomes, not in the test results, not in the applause or achievements. The truth is in the staying, the returning, the getting back up when no one sees you fall. You learn who you are in the fight, not in the victory, but in the tension, in the moments when your mind screams, "Quit," and your heart whispers, "Not yet." That's where your character is forged. I remember this one evening. It was raining, not dramatically, just a soft drizzle, enough to blur the streetlights. I had a midterm coming up, and I had barely studied. I felt hopeless. Instead of forcing myself to study, I grabbed my umbrella, walked outside, and let the rain soak into my clothes. I didn't run from it. I let it wash over me like the exhaustion I'd been carrying, and I cried, right there, in the open, because sometimes your body carries sadness your mouth hasn't named yet. But when I walked back inside, dripping and cold, I felt lighter, not fixed, but unburdened, and I sat down, and I opened my textbook, and I read the first sentence. That's all. Just one sentence. That was the fight, not the rain, not the tears, not the exam. The fight was coming back, even soaking wet, even scared, even unsure. You see, we think strength looks like never bending, but real strength is bending without breaking. Real strength is letting yourself be human and still trying anyway. So if today is one of those days where you feel weak, tired, numb, I want you to remember, you don't have to be fearless. You just have to be faithful. Faithful to your effort, faithful to your progress, faithful to the version of you who dared to begin. There's truth in your fight, even if no one sees it, even if you can't yet, and that truth will carry you, one quiet, powerful moment at a time. Let me be honest with you again. There's something terrifying about starting over. It doesn't matter if it's a new semester, a new project, or a new day. That blank slate can feel more like a mirror than an opportunity, because starting over means facing everything you couldn't finish the first time. It means standing at the bottom of a mountain you thought you'd already climbed, only to realize you're back at the trailhead, shoes worn, heart tired, and hope a little less shiny than before. But starting over also means something else, something quieter, something kinder. It means you're still willing to try, and that, my friend, is no small thing. I used to think starting over was proof of failure, proof that I hadn't been strong enough, fast enough, good enough to get it right the first time, but I was wrong. Starting over isn't a sign of weakness, it's a declaration of courage. It's you looking life in the eye and saying, "You didn't break me." It's you dusting off disappointment and choosing to move forward anyway. I remember a time when I had to retake a course. I was ashamed. I avoided eye contact when people asked how it went. I told myself stories about how I'd failed, how I'd wasted time, money, energy. But then something unexpected happened. The second time around, I paid attention in a way I hadn't before, not because I was desperate, but because I had something I didn't have the first time. Humility. I wasn't chasing perfection anymore. I was chasing understanding, and that shift, that quiet internal shift, changed everything. I stopped measuring my worth by the speed of my progress. I started valuing the depth of my growth. I asked more questions. I took deeper breaths. I learned not just the material, but myself, and I passed with a grade I was proud of, but more than that, with a heart that had healed. Because starting over taught me this: you are not the same person redoing the path. You're someone new, someone wiser, someone stronger, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. So if today feels like another beginning, if you're opening a fresh notebook, setting a new goal, or trying again after a heartbreak, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not less than for needing another chance. You are brave. You are healing. You are rising. And there is something profoundly beautiful about a person who refuses to let the past define their next step. So take that next step, not because you're certain, but because you're willing. That's the art of starting over. And you, whether you know it or not, are already an artist of incredible strength. Let me be honest with you again. There's a part of this journey that almost no one talks about. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's invisible. It happens in quiet rooms, behind closed doors, in the middle of the night when everyone else is sleeping. It happens when the lights are off and your doubts are loud. When you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if any of this matters, wondering if you matter, wondering if anyone would notice if you just stopped trying. This is the dark. Not metaphorically, not poetically. The real dark. The dark that settles around your shoulders like a weighted blanket. The dark that presses on your chest when you wake up and realize it's another day to keep fighting the same battles. And you're already tired. I've been there. More times than I can count. I remember one night in particular. I had stayed up late trying to finish an assignment. My eyes burned from the screen. My notes were a mess. My mind was blank. I'd read the same sentence 7 times and still didn't know what it meant. I got up, walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, looked in the mirror, and I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. There were bags under my eyes. My skin looked pale. My mouth was pressed into a line that hadn't smiled in days. And the question came again, as it always does in the dark. Why are you doing this? That night, I sat on the floor of my room, back against the bed, legs pulled to my chest. No music, no phone, just silence. And I let myself cry. Not the kind of cry you do when something specific happens. The kind of cry that comes when you've carried too much for too long. It felt like I was unraveling, but I wasn't falling apart. I was releasing. And in that stillness, in that darkness, I heard something that wasn't there before. It wasn't a voice, exactly. More like a knowing, more like a memory. A reminder that I've felt this low before, and still rose. A reminder that darkness doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're planting roots. Because growth doesn't always look like rising. Sometimes it looks like resting. Sometimes it looks like surviving. Sometimes it looks like sitting in the dark long enough to find your own light. And that's what I did. I didn't bounce back the next day. I didn't wake up with a new plan. But I got up. I ate. I showered. I made tea. I opened my laptop. And I began again. That's what rising in the dark looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not inspirational. It won't make a great quote for social media, but it's real. It's the kind of strength you build in the silence. The kind that no one sees, but everyone eventually benefits from. You become the friend who listens better, the partner who loves deeper, the student who fights harder, because you've seen the dark, and you didn't let it swallow you. You made peace with it. You learned how to breathe in it, and slowly, day by day, you learned how to rise. If you're there now in the quiet, lonely dark, I want you to know, you are not broken. You are becoming. And there will come a day when you look back and realize that the night you thought would end you actually made you so stay. Not because it's easy, but because you are worth the fight. You are worth the light that's coming. Let me be honest with you again. There's a weight we carry every day that doesn't belong to us. It sneaks in quietly, woven through timelines and photographs, buried in casual conversations and compliments that cut the wrong way. It's the burden of comparison. And if you've ever looked at someone else and felt smaller because of it, you know exactly what I mean. We don't always talk about it, but it's there. In the way your heart drops when a friend announces their success. In the way you scroll through social media and feel your stomach tighten at someone else's highlight reel. In the way your wins suddenly feel like not enough next to theirs. It's not that you're bitter. You're proud of them. It's not that you're insecure. You know your own worth, or at least, you're trying. But still, something inside you whispers, they're ahead, and you're behind. I know that voice well. I've heard it when someone landed their dream job while I was still figuring out my major. I've heard it when a friend got accepted to a program I didn't even have the courage to apply to. I've heard it when I saw people living with a kind of ease I couldn't fake, even on my best days. And every time, the same question would rise. What's wrong with me? Why am I not there yet? Why is it so easy for them? Why do I feel like I'm always catching up? Here's what I wish someone had told me sooner. Comparison is a thief, but not just of joy. It's a thief of truth, because it tells you only part of the story. It shows you their smiles, not their silence. Their trophies, not their tears. Their peak, not their process. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their greatest hits, and it's not fair. To them, to you, to your journey. Your path was never supposed to look like theirs. It was never supposed to follow their timeline. It was never meant to meet anyone's expectations but your own. I remember one evening I broke down, not because I had failed, but because I was tired of feeling like success had an expiration date. Like if I didn't have it all figured out by 25, I never would. Like if I didn't move fast enough, I would miss my moment. But the truth is, there is no timeline for greatness. Some people bloom early, some people bloom late, but the blooming, that part is guaranteed if you keep watering your own soil. And maybe that's the hardest part, turning away from everyone else's garden long enough to tend to your own. But that's where peace lives, not in racing ahead, not in being first, but in being faithful, faithful to your pace, your process, your purpose. Comparison teaches us to live for applause, but growth teaches us to live with purpose. There's a freedom in choosing to celebrate others without questioning yourself. There's a power in honoring your own milestones, even if they don't look like someone else's, even if no one else claps, even if no one else sees. You see, no one else has your background, no one else carries your wounds, no one else sees through your eyes, hears through your past, feels through your future. So how could their journey be yours? It took me years to understand that my path wasn't late, it was just different. And in that difference, I found depth. Depth of character, depth of resilience, depth of grace. Because once you stop running someone else's race, you finally start walking your own. And every step, no matter how slow, becomes sacred. I once journaled for 30 straight days, not about what I accomplished, but about where I showed up for myself. The morning, I didn't hit snooze. The afternoon, I asked for help. The night, I chose rest instead of guilt. Those were my milestones, and they mattered, because progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the dark that says, I'm still here. And maybe that's what I want to tell you most. Being here, still trying, still breathing, still choosing yourself despite the noise, that's a miracle. You are not your pace. You are not your position in line. You are not your comparison. You are a story still being written, one moment at a time. So the next time you catch yourself looking sideways at someone else's page, someone else's win, someone else's light, gently turn your eyes back to your own and say, look how far I've come. That's not pride. That's truth. That's healing. That's power. That's the freedom of laying down the burden of comparison and picking up your own life again. Let me be honest with you again. There will come a day, if it hasn't already, when quitting sounds like the kindest thing you could do for yourself. Not because you don't care, but because you've cared so much for so long. And it just hurts now. You'll wake up and the idea of showing up again for class, for work, for that dream will feel like asking a broken wing to fly. And your mind will say, maybe it's time to stop. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe all this effort isn't worth it. And I'm not here to judge you for those thoughts. I've had them too, more than once. They come on quietly, usually at the end of a string of hard days, after too little sleep and too many small disappointments. They settle in, not with anger, but with exhaustion, and exhaustion can be louder than any doubt. I remember a day like that. It was a Tuesday, nothing special. I'd just gotten back a paper I thought I'd done well on. It came back covered in red marks, the kind of feedback that doesn't just correct your words, it pokes at your confidence. And as I sat there, holding that paper, my chest went tight. Not because I didn't want to improve, but because I didn't know how much more of myself I could give without breaking. I walked out of the building and didn't go to my next class. I walked, just walked, nowhere in particular, past the library, past the coffee shop, past the people who looked like they were doing just fine. And I thought, I could just stop, right now. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation, just stop. But then, and I don't know why, I sat down on a bench, pulled out my phone, and scrolled through the photos. Not the ones I'd posted, the ones I never shared. A photo of me crying at 2 a.m. but holding my notes anyway. A photo of the textbook pages stained with coffee because I knocked my cup over from sheer exhaustion. A photo of my little wins, my messy desk, my highlighted lines. And it hit me. I didn't come this far to walk away on a Tuesday. I didn't give up weekends and sleep and sanity to be undone by a single bad day. I didn't build this version of myself just to leave them behind. When it got hard, and maybe that's what I want to tell you, the day you want to quit is not the day to make decisions. That day is sacred. Not because it's the end, but because it's the moment. You learn how to breathe through your breaking. Because if you can survive that day, if you can just sit with it, without running, without deciding, you'll learn something important. You are not fragile. You are tired. You are not lost. You are learning. You are not failing. You are forming. And yes, You might rest. You might cry. You might yell into a pillow. You might take a walk that goes nowhere. But then, you'll come back. Not because it's easy, not because you're fearless, but because deep down, there's a version of you who still believes. And that version is worth fighting for. So here's my invitation. Don't quit on a Tuesday or a Thursday, or whenever that day comes. Quit when you're proud. Quit when you've given it all and found something new. Quit when you're done. Not when you're drowning, but not today. Today, you sit, you feel, you survive, and maybe tomorrow, you rise. Because this journey, this brutal, beautiful, baffling path, it's shaping you in ways you don't yet see, in ways others may never understand. But one day, you'll look back on this part, the part where you almost quit, and say, that was the day I didn't, and that changed everything. Let me be honest with you, one last time. There is no grand finale in real life, no orchestra swelling in the background, no perfect moment when the sky parts and everything makes sense. What happens more often than not is something quieter, something almost unnoticeable. You wake up one day, and for the first time in a long time, you don't feel like quitting. Not because everything is suddenly easy, but because something inside you has changed. You've grown roots. You've built muscle, the emotional kind. You've learned how to carry yourself through the chaos. And here's the miracle. You kept going. Through the fog, through the noise, through the days when you wanted to disappear. You showed up. Maybe messy, maybe scared, maybe completely unsure. You showed up, and that matters more than you know. Because showing up is how everything changes. You don't realize it at first. You just notice that the page isn't as intimidating anymore. That the words come a little easier. That your hands don't shake when you raise them in class. You catch yourself smiling at something small, a good coffee, a warm sunbeam through your window, a sentence in a textbook that actually makes sense. You start to believe, maybe I can do this, and not just once, but again, and again, and again. That belief, though it didn't come out of nowhere, it was built in the shadows, in the days you doubted everything, in the nights you cried quietly so no one would hear. It was built in the moments no one clapped for, the moments no one saw. And now, you carry it inside you. You carry every version of yourself who didn't give up, the one who studied even when it felt pointless, the one who stayed in the room even when her heart was breaking, the one who asked for help even when it was humiliating, the one who chose rest over guilt, the one who walked back in after a failure and tried again. You are the result of 1,000 small victories, 1,000 small decisions to stay. You're not here by accident. You're here because you kept going. I know that some people will never understand how hard that was. They'll see your success and assume it came easily. They won't know the storms you walked through just to stand still. But that's okay, because you know, and I know. And the truth is, your journey doesn't need to be validated by applause. It's already sacred because of the effort it took. So if no one's told you lately, I'm proud of you, not just for what you've done, but for all the days you didn't give up, for all the nights you kept the promise to yourself. I'll try again tomorrow. That's what courage looks like. That's what growth sounds like. It's not always loud, it's not always impressive, but it is always powerful. So here you are, after everything, still standing, still reaching, still learning. That's a kind of success that can't be measured by grades or trophies or titles. That's the success of becoming someone you're proud of, someone who doesn't need perfect conditions to grow, someone who knows how to rise even when no one is watching, someone who understands that real strength is staying soft in a world that tries to harden you. That's who you are now, and that's who you will continue to become. One choice, one day, one breath at a time. You kept going, and because you did, everything is still possible. So let this be the beginning, not of perfection, but of presence, of purpose, of peace. You've earned that, and I'm so proud of you.